Well, those are the headlines. I'm joined now by Al Dunne and by John Lee. Thank you both very much indeed for coming into us this morning. We might start, John, we have you, a political journalist, Irish Water. Story's been running for, what, 3 days now since the 50 million figure came out. Where is it at the moment?
We, our own Watergate, they're now referring to it as in Leinster House. We were told last night that, to everyone's surprise, yourself and myself included, we were chatting about it beforehand, that Irish water executives are to get bonuses, which was a surprise.
I didn't think anyone was getting bonuses anymore.
No, and it's based upon a system that's in play already in their parent company, Bord Gáis. So executives will earn up to €7,000 a year.
It's up to 300 people could
Up to 300 people across the board. At the highest level, we're looking at €7,000 a year. John Tierney, the head of the newly constituted Irish Water, said that this is because the increment-based system, where people's salary went up year by year, has been stopped, and there's a pay freeze. So instead, they're going to get bonuses.
So they're getting around the pay freeze with bonuses. The
problem politically, and all the papers, hint at this, and we wrote about it at the weekend, is that Phil Hogan is in charge of this. Yet another debacle from the government's point of view, caused primarily, I think, from covering the story by the excuse the pun, drip of information. You go and look for information, it comes out little by little at committees, and people are shocked by each revelation. Other ministers in government tackle their portfolios by fully informing the public of what is going on. You look at Joan Burton's approach, everybody knows what's coming down the line, and each thing isn't a shock. In the grand scheme of things, maybe, it's not for me to say, setting up a utility like this, spending this kind of money is not excessive. But what shocks the public and what shocks our readers and your viewers is that there's a new money-based revelation every day, and that's what's causing the political problem, and it's what's causing the story to run across the papers today.
So more openness, you think, would have headed this off the pass?
It would help. And
we would have all gone, oh, well, if it costs 85 million to set it up in terms of consultancy fees, well, so be it.
Again, the papers say this morning, Phil Hogan's approach isn't probably helping the government's cause. He said yesterday that he doesn't micromanage his department, which would be a surprise to some people, I guess. That is his job, I suppose. He also said that you can't make an omelette without breaking some eggs. So it's a story that will continue to cause ripples, because there's a different revelation every day, and we're still seeking an awful lot of information in the Dáil.
He does seem safe enough, would you say? Just briefly.
Well, safe for Phil will be whether he gets to Europe or not in May, and let's see how this goes.
But from your point of view, John, it is the story that keeps giving. The gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to pay water taxes, but this really gives people more ammunition to say, I don't want to pay it and I shouldn't be paying it, and look at what's happening now, and look at what's happening now. I mean, it's, as you say, if everything was out in the open quite quickly, all at once, at least it's transparent.
Yeah, and Phil Hogan has been handed a lot of difficult taxes to deal with.
Yeah, in fairness to him, Listen, we're going to leave water there for a moment. We could talk about it for the whole programme. But look, what about this price war at the chemist? Al, you've been looking at this one. 80% he could cut drug prices by.
It's a great story. A chemist in Dundrum, it's called Health Wave, and it's a different business model. He's asking you to subscribe €25 for the year, and for that, for any of your prescriptions, he'll guarantee he will give you the prices that you would pay across the border. So
across the border, really? And is he buying his drugs from a different person?
It's just all generic. He's saying he's not selling below cost, that he's still going to make money on it. It's just a very different business model, and some of the savings you can make that people may know. Your Ventolin inhaler, your salbutamol, the generic on that would normally cost around $10.43. He's going to sell it for $2.95.
Wow!
And he's concentrating only on medicine. He won't be selling beauty products or anything like that.
Well, that's fair enough. I mean,
that keeps his cost base low, he says. He's only 27.
And it is true, when you go in to buy medication, you do tend to pick up a shampoo or a this, that or the other. So he'll, by bringing, maybe that's it. Maybe that's part of the model.
It seems that costs money to supply that stuff for the public. So
he's also saying he can save the state money, because you pay, after €144, the state pays for per month. He's saying if he can keep a bill that might be 160 a month down to 127, well, then he's saving the difference between 144.
And I presume he's still charging the prescription cost itself. aside from the medication. It'll be really interesting that. I'd say he'll be mobbed today.
Micromanaging his business.
What about... there's another interesting story here. Over 55s are indifferent to advertising.
This is according to a
They've
Media
learned
Vest.
how to cut it out.
Yeah, and a Media Vest, what do they call it? The Grey Expectations Report. That because over 55s are ignored by advertisers, they ignore advertising.
That's very interesting. It's true, you very rarely see over 55s people...
unless it's Michael Parkinson trying to sell you a funeral grant and give you a free pen or something.
Exactly.
Specsavers is about the only one that you can think of that is aimed at the
There's a
over 55s.
vitamin as well, isn't there? There's a vitamin that...
None of us would know, of course, because we're not over 55.
The false teeth fixer gel, I've seen one of them.
Or the likes of Flora Proactive will go after that.
Actually, now we can name quite a few of them.
In general, they don't target over 55s.
So they just
get it out. Zoom out. And these people,
really
they tend to have a few quid to spend, and you know, the advertisers. But I think what MediaVest are saying is most advertising buyers are average age 35, so they tend to advertise to people of their own age.
Who are the people who are most cash-strapped in society with the big more? That's very interesting. John, what about turf cutting? The ban, it's partially lifted, is it?
It's partially lifted. There's over 50 special areas of conservation that were you know, we were told that we would not be allowed to cut turf on them. But it was a very bitter and acrimonious protest over the last couple of years. So there's been a temporary reprieve on some of the bogs. 36 would be banned again, but I reckon it's a good thing. I don't know what you think, but in the west of Ireland, there's nothing as evocative as a smell of a turf fire when you go into a hotel or a pub.
This is just kind of snuck in, though. I mean, there's no coverage of this, because it was so acrimonious. It was such a big story, and now suddenly it's lifted, and nobody's really talking about it that much.
Planes flying over bogs, observing people cutting, and seems to have gone back.
Ruining a whole way of life, and...
Well, I suppose it's a victory for Luke Flanagan as well, who
Is he claiming it? Is he in the papers?
He is, absolutely. The politician will always claim a victory when it's a... I also notice he's the public relations officer for the Turf Cutters Association of Ireland, so I don't know how that works. He must have to ring himself up to get a comment, but he is, I mean, you know, shouldn't be too facetious about it. He has fought a very strong campaign upon the views of his constituents in Roscommon, where I think it is a major issue. I drove through Roscommon yesterday, and there isn't much else but bog there. So, you know, it seems to be an important part of the local economy for farmers.
It is interesting, that one.
And
Melissa, moving on from that one,
they've given some time back.
Top TV programme for 2013.
Top RTE.
The top 20. This is the programmes that were most watched, is it?
In RTE over the past 12 months. The Toy Show, almost 1.6 million people watched the Toy Show.
That's unbelievable, isn't it?
That's almost a third of the population tuned in for some of that 2 hours. You know, things like Love Hate comes in at just over 1 million. Mrs Brown's Boys is number 4 and number 5, 1,913,000. In the middle there is the All-Ireland final, and John and I were just saying earlier that out of the top 5, the only one we actually saw was the All-Ireland final.
Really? Well, I certainly saw the Toy Show, and it was terrific.
Morning Edition will be in next year's figures. We're sure of it.
It was at number 21.
I would hope so, absolutely. Yeah, it must have been.
That's the one I watch.
What is interesting is a quarter of them are sporting events, and only 2 are not home produced, and one of them is the Eurovision Song Contest.
That is very interesting, isn't it? So it's
we
Irish
love watching Irish programmes.
The Rose of Tralee is in there at number 16 as well. It's another huge viewer getter.
Every year there are people who come out and say, this is terrible, it's rubbish, it shouldn't be on our TV screens. But the numbers that it gets
669,000. What? I mean, you're a media expert now. What would your analysis of this be? Like, what does this mean to you?
Well, I think it's, firstly, they say that digital is killing traditional media. This clearly shows, like, a third of the population are watching the Late Late Show. We're still watching TV. Look at the numbers, they don't lie. And I mean, even the normal numbers on a week-to-week basis, you have programmes, you know, Primetime is getting 200,000, 300,000 viewers, the Late Late is getting 500,000, 600,000 viewers. This is a medium that's by no means
So does that mean that the whole kind of digital revolution that is coming in addition to our traditional TV viewing habits, that people are still kind of viewing TV in their families or in groups, because it's very different, isn't it?
I think people are consuming it in a different way. A lot of, like, you'll find a lot of people watching on the player afterwards.
Yes, that's true.
Or even going onto YouTube if things have been put up there.
And fast forwarding through the advertising often as well.
And that's where it damages my clients. But you know, you've got to try and find cleverer ways in order to get your products out there.
That is contrary to what people expected, really. They didn't expect viewership to hold up like
traditional
this.
type programmes as well that people would have been watching for the last 60 years.
Yeah.
I think the Eurovision Song Contest is 60 years old next year. And their soaps and their comedy programmes, I mean, you couldn't get a more traditional type programme than Mrs Brown's Boys, which is almost like something from the 50s.
Yeah, and
but people
that's
still love
a
it.
huge show in Britain as well. So it's not just Irish audience, it's a British audience.
But just before we finish, that is the most watched toy show ever.
Really?
Wow.
So they're still going up, the old traditional staples of RTE. That's very interesting. OK, what about Kate? Kate Moss.
Another old staple. She's 40 this year, and she really is a one-off. And for all those women out there who are told to go to bed early and stay off the drink and the sweets and everything else, Kate is an absolute contradiction of all that. She looks absolutely stunning. Was first seen in an airport, according to the Irish Independent report, in New York when she was 14 years of age.
Really spotted at 14.
There may be a new generation coming through. Her daughter, Lila Grace, is just 11, but she is only 3 years younger than the age her mother was when she was discovered.
And are they talking about her modelling, yeah?
Well, she's very photogenic, they say. She has the genes, and she may be the next one along the way. I think she already has a half-sister who is modelling, a 16-year-old. But Kate is still going strong. She's bringing in all the top brands, and no matter where you go in the world, her face is on billboards. She just shows the...
She'd be a dream for a product, wouldn't she?
She would. She's perfect.
Yeah.
But yes and no, because she is probably more famous than the product, than a lot of the products that she's...
So she'd be too famous to push a product, really? She'd just overshadow it entirely? That's interesting.
You spot her and not the product.
Well, that's it. I think she's got a lovely present from Richard Branson for her birthday, a holiday on his island in
Necker Island.
Exactly.
Oh, wouldn't you love it?
£250,000 a week. Pounds a week.
Listen, thank you both very much indeed for coming into us this morning.
Thanks, Keelin.
Now it is time for the sports news, and Claire McNamara is here. Claire.
Thank you, Keelin. Good morning. Well, we start with some...